Why Jagex tried to sue RuneLite, the true story. No, we were talking about this the other day. Like, there is just no way that anybody would play RuneScape without RuneLite. We're all too addicted to it now. It just offers way too many qualities of life and improves the gameplay experience times 1,000. There's just no possible way. I guess we should watch this, man. This seems pretty interesting. Let's see what tried to happen. I was always thinking about this because we were talking about this too. RuneLite, I was thinking, like, what if RuneLite just decided, hey, we're going to shut this down? Like, they just decided one day they're going to hold the game hostage and be like, yo, you need to pay us. And then I guess because it's open source software, it can't be shut down. I'm not a nerd like that. I don't really understand what all that means conceptually. But people were saying that they can't actually just do that because Jagex could just take the software or whatnot. It's like legitimately just open source. They absolutely can. They're just too nice to do it. The guy who runs it is a legend. Oh, maybe we'll find out about who it is because I don't know who runs RuneLite or anything about him. Canelo makes some of the best videos ever. This one's got a ton of views on it. I'm very interested in seeing what happened with the RuneLite thing. Let's watch it.
Most popular client for old school RuneScape, but it wasn't that long ago that Jagex threatened RuneLite's creator with a lawsuit if he didn't take the client down. This threat was one of the biggest mistakes Jagex ever made in old school RuneScape's history, and the reason why is actually going to shock you. To tell this story, we need to go all the way back to the opening of old school RuneScape in 2013. If you wanted to play the game, you had one option, the official client, which could either be played using a browser or by downloading it from the website.
Bro, we used to play RuneScape on the internet. You guys realize that, right? We used to play from the web browser. That's how I used to play the game when I played RuneScape Classic. We played on the internet, like using Internet Explorer. That was the original way to play. All these clients and stuff came a long way later. I started playing with RuneLite. I don't know how it is without it. Dude, it's bad fury. If you ever tried playing like on the phone, that's like pure natty. It's pure natty RuneScape, and it is rough. There are some things that are easier on the phone because you have two mouse pointers. You have two fingers. But I haven't played much phone.
Regardless of which way you chose, the game was basically the same experience. After you logged in, this is what it looked like. If you play RuneScape today, you'll notice there's a lot missing. No orbs to show important stats, no world map, no XP tracker, and especially no plugins. It was more bare bones than Zaya when that first came out. If you wanted to turn your run on and off, you had to go to the game's settings tab. I mean, it works, but why there? Now, the game was more than playable, but compared to most other MMOs, there was a lot of quality of life features missing, and it was unlikely Jagex would be able to add any anytime soon. The team only had 3 staff members working on the game at the time, and they didn't have any development tools yet. This is what a player named Matthew came up with an idea to develop his own client for RuneScape. He would be able to add in any missing client features that players wanted, while Jagex's staff focused on doing whatever they could to keep the game going.
Matthew. Where would we be without this guy? Matthew the GOAT.
Matthew was well experienced with developing tools for RuneScape, for reasons we'll get into later, so he worked quickly. The same month Old School launched, he already had a working version of his custom client. Originally, he was just going to keep it to himself and a few friends, but someone shared some screenshots of it, and then everybody wanted a copy. Matthew didn't know it yet, but this hobby project would soon become the most controversial tool in Old School RuneScape's history. But first, let's write our own history in Taurus Land, a brand new classic-styled MMORPG with a ton of features I think you'll love. Taurus Land is available on both mobile and PC, so you can raid dungeons with your friends from anywhere, which is pretty convenient since their legendary dungeon championship is starting soon. Everyone can participate, and there are a lot of great rewards for players to obtain. Most importantly, the event is fair, and due to the low entry threshold into the game, everyone has a chance to win prizes. Derived from the iconic warrior, mage, and priest classes, Taurus Land has 9 different classes, each of which have...
This looks like a mobile version of Riot's MMO.
2 specializations you can choose from. Regardless of which you choose, you can make a pretty unique build. Each profession has a flexible talent tree, which you can make cost-free adjustments to depending on what combat scenario you find yourself in. Then you can put that build to the test in raids. For example, the Blight Dragon. Or if raids aren't your thing, Taurus Land has a huge world for you to explore with puzzle and adventure-based gameplay. Use the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to pre-register for Taurus Land today.
I'm not even hating. It looks
after
good.
Matthew started giving others access to his client,
The
he would release it
art style looks
publicly
good.
under the name Orion. Orion included a lot of the missing features I mentioned earlier, like stat orbs and XP tracking, as well as some new ones like a high scores plugin and screenshot tool. It was pretty basic, but even these small changes were a massive improvement over the base
Badass,
client.
bro. It's
Not to
badass.
mention, it was open source. If you had any doubts about the security of Orion, you could trawl through it and see that it was safe. Or do what I do and wait for someone else on Reddit who can read code to say that it's safe. Now, some of you might be thinking there's no way Jagex would allow something like Orion to exist. In
Yeah, I did boot.dev for about 3 lessons, so I can actually read code now. If you guys ever have any questions.
2013, what Orion was doing was explicitly against the rules. Third-party clients of its nature were not even remotely allowed. Well, Matthew had some powerful connections which require a bit of backstory. Matthew was a longtime friend of then Jagex staff member Mod Jackmob. Before Jackmob was hired by Jagex, he was most well known for being the founder of a RuneScape bot client called OSBuddy. Back in 2011, OSBuddy was one of the most popular bot clients for RuneScape because it was really good.
If I send you my worm in development, you'll tell me where the problem is? Yeah, I'll teach you how to get the worm out of there. You don't want that thing in there. It's eating everything up, Glub. Get that thing out of there. Let me know.
In October of 2011, Jagex made a big update to the game codenamed Bot Nuke Day. On this day, they would be implementing major changes to the game that were estimated to break 98% of all RuneScape bots. Then CEO Mark Gerhard was so confident in this update that he said if anyone could get a bot functioning within a month of the nuke, he'd immediately offer them a job at Jagex. Just 4 days after this, Jackmob attended RuneScape's then annual convention RuneFest, showed Mark a working version of OSBuddy that he had brought with him on a flash drive, and like Mark promised, he hired him on the spot. Jackmob would go on to attain an almost untouchable status within Jagex. Mark would allow him to do just about anything that he wanted, within reason of course. He couldn't do something crazy like roll up to Jagex HQ in a tank and just crush stuff in the parking lot, because that was Mark's job. Now,
What the heck? Mark did that? Mark pulled up in a tank?
And just crush stuff in the parking lot, because that
Mark pulled up in a tank marked with the logo Jagex? What? What are they doing over there? This is sick.
was Mark's job. Now, where does Matthew come into this? Well, Matthew was also a developer for OSBuddy and had been friends with Jackmob since before they started working on it together. However, since Jackmob
The old CEO had 3 tanks. Type shit.
now worked for Jagex, that meant they would have to shut down OSBuddy for obvious reasons. But rather than scrap OSBuddy entirely, they decided to shift its purpose from bot client to custom client. OSBuddy would do the same things that most modern clients do today for old school, except for RuneScape 3. However, this client was still in early development by the time old school launched. When it did, Matthew shifted his focus to old school and Orion was born. Matthew was close friends with Mod Jackmob, and Jackmob was close friends with Mod Mark Gerhard. So Matthew was allowed to operate Orion without any issue from Jagex. Orion would continue to get new and increasingly powerful features as the months went by, and gain a small but steadily increasing percentage of the game's player base. It got to be too much for Matthew to handle alone, especially with how expensive it had become to run, so he decided to pass off the project to Mod Jackmob. This is when they would launch Orion Pro, a version of the client that would include features like loot tracking, informational plugins for a few of the game's skills, and a lot more.
Nice.
However, Pro wasn't free. It would cost £2 or about $1.50 USD at the time. Jackmob would also rebrand Orion to OSBuddy, and Orion Pro would become OSBuddy Pro. Over the next few years, OSBuddy would continue to add helpful features and grew so much that more people were using it than the official client.
You used to have to pay extra per month to use the OG RuneLite client? Really? I did not know that. Okay, so it was called Orion, then they renamed it to OSBuddy, and you had to pay a membership to get access to the quality of life features, loot tracking, and such, which you get all for free now, by the way. So back in the day when they first started developing it, you had to pay.
However, not everything was going as smoothly as it may seem. As OSBuddy grew, so did the amount of controversy surrounding it. The biggest complaint was that many players saw OSBuddy as a cheat client. It provided information and abilities to the player that those using the official client didn't have. There's plenty of examples I could make, but perhaps the most widely used example was their clue scroll puzzle helper plugin.
Damn.
Occasionally, while completing a clue scroll, you'll be tasked with completing a sliding puzzle.
Yo, shout out to their clue scroll solving puzzle, man, because I ain't trying to do that. Just let me click arrow and win. We are not trying to do that on our own because that could take all day. Those things are not easy.
If you didn't have OSBuddy, you would either have to know how to solve these puzzles or do what I did and use a website that could show you how to solve them if you uploaded a screenshot. If you had OSBuddy, however, you could use their puzzle solver plugin
Crazy
and be
Chicken, thank you
shown
for the Prime.
exactly what tiles you needed to click to solve the puzzle. This mentally challenging task turned into click yellow arrow fast. This plugin and many others like it also only existed as OSBuddy Pro features. So many players saw OSBuddy as like a form of legal cheating being added to old school. You could pay money for plugins that would allow you to progress in the game faster than those that didn't. Now, Jagex
Is RuneLite cheating, guys? Let's solve this right now. Yes. Yes, kind of. No, no. Sure. 7, thank you so much for the Prime too, man. A little back-to-back right there. RuneLite is cheating? Are we all cheaters? It doesn't cost extra. It's optional. And it gives you quality of life. That's like saying using weak auras is cheating. The reason I don't think it's cheating is because it's available to everybody. But just like any MMO, any person can have an advantage if their UI is better than yours. Your UI gives you information, and you can have as much or little as information as you want on your screen. And that's why World of Warcraft has turned into a battle of just like add-ons, weak auras, and just UI. And that's why when you play World of Warcraft now or a retail WoW, it's just the UI is the whole screen. Because you're just playing off of third-party softwares that help you play the game better. So the only way to solve that is to get rid of it. And that's what Blizzard is trying to do now. They're trying to like reduce or pick and choose what add-ons you can actually use. And that's a bit controversial, because some people have gotten used to how they play the game. So now people are mad at that too. But people are mad that there's too many add-ons and that the skill gap was too high, because people that know how to use the weak auras, take full advantage of the weak auras, are just better at the game because they know how to use the third-party software better. And it just becomes a battle of who can use the plugins and the add-ons and the weak auras the best. And then that's where the skill disparity is in the game nowadays. And it's not a great place to be in for game design for MMOs, because then the devs have to design around the usage of these plugins and add-ons and weak auras. So that being said, I don't think it's as bad over here on RuneLite as it is over there in World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is fighting a big battle on add-ons right now. I think the plugins and RuneScape are fine. None of them give you a really, really big advantage, with the exception of like True Tile is massive. I don't know if I'd be able to play the game without True Tile. I'm gonna be honest right now. So that's probably like one of the biggest ones. If you guys had to think of this single-handedly, the one add-on that gives you the biggest advantage in the game, or the one plugin that gives you the biggest advantage of the game in RuneScape, what would you say it is? What would you say is the number one plugin that makes you a cheater because you have such a drastic difference in quality of life and skill and help? Menu entry swapper. I'm gonna say tile. I'm gonna say True Tile for me. Menu entry swapper is just a quality of life thing. I don't see how that's game breaking that somebody has menu entry swapper. Shift click to walk here. Oh, because when you're doing a mechanic and you're trying to dodge, and you were to click this tile, you'd have to click to the left of it. But because you can shift click to move here, it makes it much better. Or you would have to do right click walk here, which you do have to right click walk here for PvP. They made you do that. Shift click doesn't work in PvP for some reason. I haven't really delved into why that doesn't work. But you have to right click walk here in PvP. It doesn't work. At least it didn't for me. All right, so a lot of people are saying menu entry swapper. Some people are saying True Tile, and then some people are saying quest helper. Skill expression is why it doesn't work in PvP. I see that because they maybe they wanted you to have to right click and do more actions to increase the skill gap in PvP.
Jagex would occasionally reach out to OSBuddy and ask them to remove plugins that they deemed overpowered, but this was not one of them, which actually I'm pretty okay with, even though I'll admit it's basically cheating. Why waste time use lot brain power when few brain power do trick? This was far from the only controversy they would face though. Soon after Jackmob took over, the client was also changed to be closed source, meaning you could no longer read through the code and confirm that it was safe to use. This was done for two reasons: stopping others from stealing the code and making their own clients with it, and preventing botters from using the client to make their own bots more easily. The second reason is something I'll cover much more in depth later, but regardless, it was a change that many weren't happy about. Jackmob would also leave Jagex in 2015, and despite being an ex-Jmod, many people found it hard to trust OSBuddy, the main reason being Jackmob's and Matthew's pasts. A number of users would also begin to accuse OSBuddy of being responsible for their account getting hacked or banned, although every client that has ever existed for this game, open source or not, has been accused of the same thing. Basically, despite its powerful features, many players had grown to distrust OSBuddy and disliked its paid subscription model. So why did Jagex let it stick around, especially when their rules still explicitly stated that third-party clients were not allowed? Well, some players thought that Jagex was getting some sort of kickback from OSBuddy subscriptions. Maybe Jackmob's friends who were still working at Jagex were getting some kind of cut. Well, Mod Mark Gerhard left before Jackmob did, and old school RuneScape product manager at the time, Mod Matt K, says Jagex's relationship with Jackmob wasn't in a good place after he had left. So in that case, Jagex had no reason to allow OSBuddy to continue to operate, right? Especially when they were making tons of money off of Jagex's intellectual property with no monetary benefit for Jagex. Well, in a way, they didn't really have a choice. By 2016, it seemed like every player you passed by in-game was playing using OSBuddy. If Jagex attempted to shut them down, they'd have a big problem. Not only would most of the player base lose—
Dang, that's gotta feel some type of way if you're the game developer and someone just made a better way to play the game than you did, and everyone is playing using that guy's software. Is the guy like put you in kind of a weird spot, right? So this is exactly what happened.
the main way they played the game, their only option to continue playing would be the official game client, something Jagex had neglected almost entirely since the game launched. It had received a few quality of life features since launch, but it was years behind
Even
OSBuddy.
the devs play with RuneLite
Imagine if
now?
the government one day was like,
Dang.
we're banning every computer made before the year 2000. If you use a computer newer than that, right to jail. That's how much of a downgrade Jagex's client was. Many staff members at Jagex knew that they should have done something about OSBuddy years ago, as this third-party client had way too much power over the game now, but it was far too late. So for now, Jagex would make a statement basically saying, hey, we're not endorsing OSBuddy, we're in no way business partners with them, and we're not responsible if something bad happens to your account while using it, but we won't ban your account just for using it. Now, so far, it might seem like OSBuddy had a complete monopoly.
That's the right move. That's the right move for now. I think that was the right play there. If you take something away from people, it would have been really bad
on the RuneScape client market, but that wasn't true. The same year that OSBuddy released, another client named RuneLoader was also launched, but it wasn't nearly as developed as OSBuddy was. Since OSBuddy had a premium option that they were making money with and could pay developers, they would get features added much faster than RuneLoader. This is about where a player named Adam would come into the picture. Adam had been playing RuneScape for a very long time. He maxed in RuneScape 2 back in 2010, was active in the high-level forums back then, and was getting close to maxing his old-school RuneScape account. Adam not only had a huge passion for this game, but had been watching the third-party client situation closely. Adam liked OSBuddy and all the features it had to offer, and knew it was by far the best client, but didn't want to pay for the features that came with the pro subscription. He had a good knowledge of Java and decided to do what Matthew did all the way
different Adam. There's actually a couple people named Adam, not just Bodhi.
Back in 2013, start developing his own custom client. He would name this client RuneLite, but not long after starting work on RuneLite, Adam hit a bit of a road bump. A new third-party client was released named Conduit. It was not only free, but arguably better than OSBuddy in a few ways.
Thank you very much for that, Prime. Love the streams and the videos, man. Keep it the good work. Tootie! Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate that.
Adam actually loved Conduit and used it personally for a long time. He even almost gave up on RuneLite entirely because of it. However, Conduit had one major issue. Despite how good it was, almost nobody was using it. But why? Well, Adam came to the conclusion that it's because Conduit wasn't open source. OSBuddy had been around for years at this point, and despite the concerns I mentioned earlier, was much more trustworthy than a new client made by a random person. So Adam decided that RuneLite would have to be open source. Not only would players be able to check the code to make sure nothing malicious was hiding inside, they'd be able to contribute their own code to the project. That way, Adam wouldn't be working entirely alone,
Level 3,
and
thank you
his
for the
project
Prime.
would be much easier to trust. In May of 2016, Adam released the first version of RuneLite to the public, although much like Conduit, nobody really used it. For the first 2 years, RuneLite had less than 500 users.
Really?
Which, to be fair, kind of makes sense when this is what the website looked like for most of that time. But that all changed when YouTubers Theoatrix and a friend uploaded their video reviews of the client in April of 2008.
Theoatrix here.
RuneLite introduced never-before-seen features to the player base,
Theoatrix
like menu
the GOAT.
entry swapper, highlighting an item on the ground based on its value. The first
we just talked about that. Menu entity swapper was probably the game changer, as well as quest helper and true tile. Those three right there changed the freaking game forever.
ever Chambers of Xeric boss scouting plugin, and more. Plus, they offered most of the same features OSBuddy Pro did, but completely for free. Near immediately, OSBuddy started losing members as players began canceling their subscriptions and moving over to RuneLite. Every day, RuneLite was gaining hundreds, sometimes thousands of new users. It seemed to be going nowhere but up. But then, Jagex asked Adam to have a meeting with them. A few days prior to this meeting with Adam, Jagex had an all-hands-on-deck meeting with their highest-level executives and company lawyers. The topic of that meeting was what they should do about RuneLite. Jagex had a problem with RuneLite that they didn't have with previous clients. It was open source and going to remain that way. I mentioned earlier that Orion/OSBuddy went closed source for two reasons: to prevent others from stealing their code and making their own clients, clients, and because leaving it open source made it easier for bot developers to make bot clients for the game. The second reason is why Jagex took issue with RuneLite. To explain things simply, Jagex uses a process.
I didn't know that about open source, that bots could look at it and like use that information there to create code based on like the existing code. That is a tough situation because we don't like bots. Anyways, let's keep it going.
Called obfuscation on RuneScape's client. This makes the client's code harder to understand.
I'm learning a lot from this video.
Bot developers from reading the code, learning how it works, and building their own bot clients. However, for RuneLite and other third-party clients to function, they have to deobfuscate the code. The issue with RuneLite is that they not only publicly published the deobfuscated code, but also included their deobfuscator. This made it really easy for bot developers to either take RuneLite's deobfuscated client code or deobfuscate the RuneScape client themselves, and then use that code to make their own bot clients. So although RuneLite's open source nature wasn't intended to help bot developers, it was doing them a favor, and Jagex wasn't happy about it. During this meeting, they decided that they were going to tell Adam to shut down RuneLite entirely, or they would sue him. Mod Matt K, who I mentioned earlier in this video, was given the unfortunate task of informing Adam. During Matt's meeting with Adam, Adam offered to close source the client, but Matt told him no. He had until the end of the week to take RuneLite down entirely, or they'd be going to court. Adam actually wasn't informed why Jagex wanted RuneLite taken down. In this meeting, Matt made no mention of the deobfuscation tools being the issue, and simply said that RuneLite needed to go because it was violating Jagex's copyright. However, Matt did tell him that Jagex would be taking down OSBuddy and Conduit too, and that Adam was just the first client owner to be contacted. Instead of taking RuneLite down, Adam refused. He made a news post on RuneLite's website explaining the situation and his confusion surrounding it. Within minutes, the community started to erupt on Reddit. There was outrage in levels that hadn't been seen since the launch of RuneScape 3's Evolution of Combat update. Players asked why OSBuddy could profit off of Jagex's IP for years, and then as soon as RuneLite came into the picture, its copyright infringement, was Jagex really going to contact Conduit and OSBuddy and shut them down too? It seemed to make absolutely no sense why Jagex would do this, especially when the players and Adam had no idea that the deobfuscator was the real issue. So Jagex made a news post addressing the community. In this post, they highlighted their reasons for wanting RuneLite to shut down, the primary one being the deobfuscator and deobfuscated code. But this just led to more questions. If that's the issue, why wouldn't Jagex allow Adam to just close source the client like he offered? Plus, bot clients had been deobfuscating the RuneScape client's code for years at this point. Sure, RuneLite being open source might make it more accessible for new bot developers to get into the practice, but the established bot clients had been around for way longer than RuneLite. Then, the cherry on top of the situation was on the same day Jagex made this post, OSBuddy announced their community API. In the near future, players would be able to code their own OSBuddy plugins and contribute free ones to the community. The community's response to this was, "You're joking, right?" This was either extremely poor timing on OSBuddy's part, or they had some insider knowledge that they weren't letting us in on. Jagex just said they planned on contacting them to shut them down too, and instead, they released a feature that would more or less do what RuneLite could. Conspiracy theories that OSBuddy was making big money with a Jagex partnership and had asked them to take down RuneLite had already been.
That sounds a little sus. That sounds like Jagex making a back-end deal with OSB. They're taking a kickback and then they're using the good features from RuneLite, which was free, to try and get more people back on OSBuddy and take down the free software so they could profit off of it. This sounds like some shadiness to me. Continue.
And all over the top of the subreddit the last few days, and this only further fanned the flames. The most frustrating part of this entire situation was that it seemed to make no sense. Why was Jagex so opposed to letting RuneLite exist when there were simple solutions to the problems that they had with it? Did OSBuddy really have some secret partnership with Jagex? Well, I think the answer to both of these questions will genuinely shock you. Matt was telling the truth when he said that they were also going to contact Conduit and OSBuddy. Jagex was working on shutting down all third-party clients, and they were incredibly close. OSBuddy was in talks to hand over their client to Jagex for free. In 2015, the team behind OSBuddy had shifted their focus to a new project. They had been reinvesting any extra money that OSBuddy was making into their game studio, Automaton Games, and in March of 2017, released Deceit. This game did exceptionally well and currently has nearly 100,000 reviews on Steam. They wanted to stop developing OSBuddy entirely to focus on more games, but didn't want to leave the community hanging and were going to hand over everything to Jagex, but were waiting on contracts to get finalized. After everything was all settled, Jagex would have shut down every other third-party client. From there, they would have likely renamed OSBuddy and made it the game's official and only client. This would have actually been a great deal for both Jagex and the player base. Players would get to keep all the custom features they loved from what was then the most popular client in the game, while Jagex would have been able to kill third-party clients.
This is what they should have done, but way earlier. They should have just bought OSBuddy like right away, made it the official client, and then they could have profited off of it. But they waited too long, and then RuneLite came out. But the problem is now like half the player base is already on RuneLite. So what's going to happen here? I'm not sure. I don't know any of this lore, by the way. This is all very interesting to me.
Clients, and as a result, get more of a handle on bots. But then, RuneLite unexpectedly blew up, and Jagex panicked. They likely thought that they could shut down RuneLite before it got too big, thus avoiding even bigger outrage later. But they probably weren't expecting Adam to tell them no and go public with their demands. It also explains why they wouldn't allow Adam to just close source the client in their original meeting with him. After such an outrage from the community, Jagex knew they didn't have any choice but to allow third-party clients to continue to operate. They would meet again soon after the outrage began and decided that Adam could continue to update RuneLite if he closed sourced the obfuscation related parts of the client. Then the deal with OSBuddy got canned. There was no logical reason for them to acquire it anymore, since the main reason they wanted it would have been to have the ability to shut down third-party clients. If they took it over now, it would just add more work for them with no reward. Over the next few years, RuneLite continued to develop and would soon overtake OSBuddy. Eventually, Conduit, RuneLoader, and OSBuddy would stop providing updates to their custom clients and disappear entirely. And fast forwarding to now, Jagex has fully embraced RuneLite, making it one of 3 clients available to download on the official Jagex launcher, although it hasn't been entirely smooth sailing. Jagex's concerns with RuneLite being open source were definitely valid. Since RuneLite's rise to fame, we've seen a large number of cheat clients and bot clients based off of RuneLite come into existence. Most get taken down eventually, but it's impossible to catch.
That looks crazy. This is the one bot that calculates the percentage chance of it dying based on the square that it's standing on or something like that. I think I watched a video on this, and it calculates like which square you should be on at all times, and the bot just knows.
All of them. Even RuneLite's creator Adam thinks that the third-party client situation has gotten out of control. In an interview he did with Crumb a few years ago, he called third-party clients the biggest threat to old-school survival, and he had even considered walking away from the project entirely. ModMatt K, although he no longer works at Jagex, has also said that if RuneLite had been shut down, or if Jagex had allowed Adam to close source the client in the first place, there would be a lot less bots in the game right now. He believes that the only way bots will ever be truly eradicated is if Jagex can somehow get everyone on the new official C++ based client that launched a few years ago, although bots already exist for that too. Overall, I think that RuneLite has been a huge positive for old school RuneScape. It's introduced so many cool and unique plugins that would have never existed had Jagex banned it all those years ago. In fact, most of the in-game shots you've seen in this video so far wouldn't have been possible without it. Although the idea that it allows some bots to be created more easily is an uncomfortable one. But even if Jagex tries to ban clients again and it one day disappears, as you already know from those C++ client bots, botters will always find a way. If you enjoyed this video, check out the video on the right. It's all about Swift Switch, the biggest—
man. That was cool learning about the lawsuit for RuneLite, and eventually they just gave it up because RuneLite was too strong, man. I swear the community would have rebelled and they would have lost so many player base just in the way that they can never cancel it now. because I'm addicted to it. And if they cancel something that I'm addicted to, then I'm going to go riot in Falador. I can't speak today. And they don't want that. They don't want another riot in Falador. Jagex doesn't want that. Okay? They don't want to see me bust out the cannon.